had some awesome time of worship and prayer, and we are blessed to have a guest speaker this morning. John Hefner is going to be bringing the word for us this morning. He always delivers an excellent word to us. He's just not going to get up here and give you a devotional type message. He's going to give you something in substance. And so he's literally a son in the house, right?
Yeah.
And we're glad to have him. John, come on up and share the word.
All right. Morning, morning, morning. I feel a little weird with one of these on. Back when we were in high school, I was in Doc Lynch's class for standardized testing. And we had a very zealous person running the PA system, and he would just he would just turn the thing on like all of a sudden, and then immediately kind of almost scream into it, "Stop!" and yell like really loud, and it kind of startled you. And so Doc, being the master of understatement, goes, "God Jr. speaks to us again." But sorry, random thoughts. Anyways, so I don't want to be that here today. We kind of fiddled with my settings so that I wouldn't be so booming, because I have a very loud voice as it is, and so we're trying to make it comfortable for everybody. All right, hey, I think you see the title of my sermon this morning, Synching with God, and it's mask. Now, we've been dealing with masks for about 6 months now since the COVID has hit, and actually I guess it's been about 5. We've been dealing with masks, but that's not quite what I'm going to be talking about today, as you might guess, being in a church service. So, I'm going to start out with something a little fun here. Yeah. All right, who is this? That should work. Oh, there we go. Who is that? The Lone Ranger, right off the bat, man. Got a lot of people who used to watch old television. Okay, good. How about this one? This is a little bit obscure. Pastor Greg with the Elephant Man. That is John Merrick, the Elephant Man. He was early about, I think he's around 1930, and he wore the mask to cover up his face. Just to kind of keep it from people, because he had many growths on his face, and he didn't want people to focus only on that. Now we're going to get a little bit more obscure. Who is this? Does anybody know? No. That is the man behind the iron mask. I'm going to have to disqualify Pastor Greg here, but the man in the iron mask. Now, he was a political prisoner, and they put him in this iron mask so he wouldn't be. They wouldn't know who he was. They think that he was actually a prince of the throne, and the ruler that took over hid him away so that he could never come and take the throne from him. So they think that's kind of what, but nobody knows. And it, of course, caused the book by Alexander Dumas that is the Man in the Iron Mask, and he came up with a big story about it, how, and you can see the movie with Leo. It's great. So, all right. So now I've given you some hard ones. Here's an easy one. There we go. That is Batman, although it didn't show up as well on there, but you recognize the ears. Yeah. So the Batman he wears the mask to protect his loved ones, so that they don't have to suffer for what he does. And nobody can get to them because of him. Although, if you watch the movies, he sure shows an awful lot of people his face. But anyways, I'm just thinking. So all of that to say this. I thought we'd start at something light. This is going to get kind of heavy, but I'm going to do my best to make this not so heavy, because this isn't a place of judgment today. This is a place of teaching, okay? And so I'm not going to point out anybody in particular. I'm going to talk about me and some of the struggles that I have, and I'll let you figure out where you fit into that. How about that? So we got to start out with why I'm doing this today. There's a two-part way that this happened this week, and how this kind of happened. So about Tuesday, me and my brother were on the phone, and we like to talk about funny things we saw on Facebook. And one of our favorite topics is this guy. Paul Washer. He's a minister. He is very heavy on judgment, very light on grace. So me and my brother like to discuss some of the things he said. And nothing against the man. He does what he does. He does him, and that's fine. But he tends to be he throws a lot of judgment. So this is a statement he made in an open church house. It says, "Some of you are mad about wearing masks to church, but you have been doing it for years." Ooh. Yeah. Ooh. Kind of burns. You know what I mean? It's a heavy statement, but that's about as heavy as we're going to get today. So that's the thing. And I'm going somewhere with this. Because what he meant to condemn people, I'm going to teach on. And we're going to talk about this. Because, it's easy to point fingers at people, but if we're not offering any solutions, then it's not any good for anybody. All you've got is somebody saying you're awful. I want people to help get better. You know what I mean? So, inspiration 2. Now, a lot of you probably don't recognize this. This is an early teacher of the Bible by the name of R.C. Sproul. He was near to the turn of the century. He writes very heavy, and as you can see by this, in religious terms, the word holy divides God from all other things to put him in a category that is sui generis, in a class by himself. The Holy One is the one who possesses the supreme perfection of being. He transcends or is divided from all things creaturely. He is the, double V for some reason, most majestic, most exalted, most all-provoking being. Since he is both marvelous and wonderful in his very essence, it's very flowery speech. What does this have to do with what I'm talking about? Wednesday morning, I get up, and I'm reading this, and it moves my spirit. And I start praying. But I'm praying in this voice, with all the these and with all the big words and everything, and I'm praying in this voice. And I'm listening to myself, and I say, this isn't me. This isn't how I talk to my Father. I like to think about God as I would talk to my own dad. And I didn't talk to him like this. I talked to him as one person does to another. And I stopped myself in the middle of praying these great terms. Nothing wrong with this. It had its place. I stop in the middle of this, and I go back to speaking in just my normal voice, telling God that I'm thankful for what he's done for me. Love that song that we do, All My Life I've Been Thankful. I'm talking to him just in my normal voice. But I realize that what this is a religious mask. It's designed, I can use flowery speech to mask the fact that there's a need inside, to mask the fact that there's a hurt inside, that maybe that I'm not good enough, or I don't feel like I'm able to deal with what I'm talking about. And I realize that that's a mask we wear. And sometimes we put that mask on. When we go to meet somebody pretty fancy, let's say pretty high up, you don't talk to them like you would talk to your husband, wife, kids. You say, yes, sir, no, sir, and, very formal with most of those people. We want to put on a mask because we don't know how to deal with them because we don't know them as people. Come on. And that would be fine, except God thought it so expedient that he sent his son, his very son, to be sacrificed so that we could have a relationship with him. That tells me that he wants to talk to us. That he wasn't happy at the time living behind a curtain on the world of man. And Pastor Greg's talked about that. But he was behind the curtain in an ark. There was an ark there that made into a mercy seat. And that was where God was. And only one man in the world could go talk to him once a year. That wasn't what God wanted. He wanted to be in the hearts of men. So why am I treating him like a stranger? Is he worthy of very formal speech and pretending he's, the president or somebody that we're honored to meet? Absolutely. But that's not who he wants to be treated like. He's your friend. There's a relationship. In one place it says he's a friend that sticks closer than a brother. Now let me tell you something. Me and my brother talk pretty frankly. We banter back and forth. We give each other a little ribbing, the thing. But he knows that if there's something that goes wrong, he can call me. I'm there to listen. I'm there to help him out because he's my brother. And so he knows that. We can, even beyond all the ribbing and the stuff that we give each other, we're brothers. We're there to help each other. Moving on. The first mask mentioned in the Bible says, "But the Lord God called to the man." He said, "Where are you?" And Adam answered. He said, "I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." Adam said, I didn't want to see you. I was naked, God. I don't want to see you naked. Now, let's put aside the fact that Adam had been naked every time before that he talked to God, and it didn't seem to bother him. So, it's not entered his mind that this might be a little strange to God that Adam is embarrassed to come see him when he's talked to him before. In fact, it says they walked together in the garden in the cool of the evening. So it sounds like it was a regular meeting that they had. And all of a sudden, Adam's got problems. But God, who knows all, says, and he said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from?" He throws up another mask, a mask of justification. He says, "That woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree and I ate it. I didn't know, God. I didn't know it was going to be so serious. She just gave it to me. I was just there. Throws up that other mask. This was a person that Adam walked with every day. And he felt the need to throw a mask up between him and God. Interestingly enough, I use the same set of verses for this part here for the last message I preached about this. It fits a lot of things. Here's this another mask. Great man of God, Elijah considered. In fact, they set an extra space at the table, the Jews do, for when Elijah comes back, because it'll signify their triumph when Elijah comes back to sit at their table. That's how high they revere Elijah. So Elijah just comes down from the mountain. He's called fire down, consumed and embarrassed all the gods of the people in the land they lived in. He's consumed their things, and then he commanded that every priest be killed because they've misrepresented God to the people. He should be living high. And then a woman came, and she said, she threatens his life. So where's Elijah? He runs as hard and as fast as he can to the north country to hide out in a field. And he says, he's laying there kind of hiding himself, feeling sulking, obviously. And the Lord said to him, he said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And we all know what Elijah says. He says, "I have zealously served the Lord God Almighty, but the people of Israel have broken their covenant with you, torn down your altars, and killed every one of your prophets. I am the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me too." He's hiding behind a mask of zealously. He's not just telling God that I ran. I got scared and I ran. I'm sorry. That she threatened me, I ran. I know I shouldn't have, but I ran. He doesn't want to accept, he doesn't want to tell God that. He wants to hide it behind some religious murmurings about how great that he has served God, but he's the only one, so he doesn't know how we can do this. But the truth of it, he was scared. And he didn't want to admit that to God. Of course, the Lord told him, he said, "You go back the same way you came and travel to the wilderness of Damascus." And when you arrive there, he goes through telling him all these things. But he's letting him know that he's not, number one, he's not alone. He's trying to tell him he's not alone. But he's angry with Elijah because he couldn't be honest with him here. Why do you think he has him appoint a successor if he's not a little angry at Elijah? If they've been in fellowship and suddenly Elijah's hiding behind and not being honest with God. I didn't include this slide, but I thought of people like David, you know, and the thing about David, what I love about David is that he made some mistakes, but he owned up to them. He told God, listen, I missed it there. And he owned up to him. And so, you know, and God respected that. God corrected David, and they moved on. He didn't try to hide who he was, because, you know, if you read the book of Psalms, he pretty much bared his soul to the Lord every time, you know, told him everything that was going on in his life. He bared his soul, you know, and so he didn't try to hide a lot of it until he got to, of course, Bathsheba and the thing, and he tried to hide that, and that didn't go so well for him, and, you know, he learned it, but I think he learned his lesson. But I mean, it's that whole thing that David was very open with God where he missed it, and God respected that. So why do we mask when dealing with God? There's a big one. Afraid to lose the status quo. Man, I've been guilty of that. How easy is it to come in here, for me, I can come in here, I could sit in that seat for an hour and a half, shake a few hands, and walk out the door. Not let anything touch me, you know, maybe you know, visit with a few people, but I don't have to let any of this in. I've rode that pine before. I've done this. I've done this where, you know, I don't really want to deal with what Pastor Greg or any of the pastors that have been here before, I don't want to deal with what they're talking about, because that would mean changing some things.
Come on, man.
I might have to move me around, and I've done this. I've watched myself do it. And then I've got in the car and said, boy, that was a good service. Everything's good, you know, and just smiling big. And I've seen myself done that, and I've caught myself. And especially on that old drive back up to Galesburg, you have a lot of time to think. And you realize maybe you were probably putting on the old act today. You didn't really want to get anything out of that, because that would be a little bit too much. Ooh, one more thing. The bane of busy people everywhere. They're afraid that it's going to be one more thing. What if Pastor Greg asked me to head the children's ministry? Or what if Pastor Greg does this? Or what if I feel necessary to go to Africa? We don't want to get too close. What if he starts asking things like that? I don't know if I want to do any of that. I got a lot of things going on, God. I got a job, and I got things I need to do. The infamous one more thing. This is one we've already talked about. Do you think that God, our Creator, the all-knowing God, can't see what's really wrong with us? So at the end, it's one of two things. We're either lying to ourselves about our intentions, and I've been guilty of that. I didn't go to church today, God. My back was hurting. I just didn't, you know, I didn't need to be there with my back all hurting and everything. You know, I think I was best here at home. Or we don't think God is who He says He is. I've been guilty of both. It's a sad thing. You know, it's one of those things that, you know, you wish you weren't, but you kind of are. And but we've got to get rid of those ideas. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. All these, I'm going to open these up a little bit here in a minute. We're worried that He or other people will be disappointed in us. I think this probably does more with the people in the church. You know, you don't. Pastor Greg's talking about a specific thing, and he's rapping, you know, about a specific issue. Let's say that, and he starts talking about these things, and I know I'm dealing with that, but maybe I don't want every one of you all to know that I'm dealing with that. I got this thing in my mind that I want you to think I'm perfect. Or I try to think that way. that little John doesn't have problems. There isn't things that come into it. Now, if you'd ask my mom, she'd probably tell you that there's problems there. But whatever. But I do that. I'm afraid of number one, embarrassing myself, or maybe I'm afraid of what you all think of me. And yet we took time out of my Sunday to come into God's house. And yet I'm not interested in getting that dealt with. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's like a lot of things, that's how we are. And we think we're not enough. There's somebody better for this, God. Why are you talking to me about it? There's obviously somebody, look at Joe Blow over here. He's got all the talent in the world. Man, that guy, he's got a voice that doesn't quit. He can do, he is a whiz at his finances, everything else. Why aren't you talking to him? Afraid to lose the status quo. Let's talk about this. And I went from the positive side of this. It started out that, Moses, he was a shepherd. That's where Moses' status quo was. The Bible says that he went out every day, he dealt with the sheep, and he went back in. Did it for 40 years. For 40 years, he dealt with those sheep. And that was Moses' status quo. Some of you all have worked jobs for long periods of time, and you know that job inside and out. Gary could probably tell you where every little spot in the McLeansboro High School and the preschool is. He can tell you where everything is in that place. He knows that job inside and out. After 40 years, Moses knew where those sheep would hide. He knew everything about them. And then one day something strange happened. A bush that doesn't burn is burning, but it doesn't burn. It just keeps on putting flames to the sky. And he says, well, I got to see this thing. Something outside of his status quo called him out and sent him back to lead a nation out. The disciples' status quo, they were fishermen. Knew all about fishing, I'm sure. In fact, that's what they turned to after Jesus died. They said, let's go fishing. They went out and got in a boat and went out fishing after Jesus died. They ran back to what they knew. That was their status quo. But they had to be changed. In the course of being with Jesus, they realized that they'd been changed. They weren't fishermen anymore. They became founders of the church. Paul's status quo, he was a religious teacher, respected by men. Supposedly on the same side as what Jesus was. He should have been. He should have been recognizing who Jesus was. I mean, he was supposedly there. But his life got interrupted on the road to Damascus. It gets interrupted. And he went and followed and gave it all up, all the prestige and everything else, to be spit on, to be beaten, to be shipwrecked, and a various laundry list of everything else. It completely changed. But, according to his writings, he was happy. And he goes on to write 13 books in the New Testament, a large portion of it. Maybe stepping out of the status quo isn't so bad. Maybe your status quo is not where you were meant to be. Just a thought. Afraid of the one more thing. In Matthew 16:25, it says, for whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. That one more thing, a lot of times the reason we don't want it, it's kind of related to that status quo thing, in that we're worried that it'll upset our apple cart. It'd be too much. But the thing is that maybe the whole apple cart was actually that one more thing, and this other stuff has just been window dressing. David then says this in Psalms 27:4. He says, one thing I ask from the Lord, and this only do I seek. This is the king of a nation. that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him at his temple. Everything is available to him, but he says that the one thing that I would ask is that I could dwell in the house of the Lord. He said that one thing has become important. That's the thing that I think is important. Think that our Creator, our all-knowing God, can't see our real reasons. And I put it in here. We, of course, talked about Adam, but Moses, he told God that, he said, I'm a stammerer. I can't talk. I stutter. There's no reason for you to really choose me. There's better people out there. I'm just a shepherd. I'm not really meant for that. God, trying to talk God out of him. And God said, oh, you're who I want. I'll give you Aaron to talk for you, and everything will be okay, Moses. Lastly, Ananias and Sapphira, they wanted to hide. They had pledged their money, but they wanted to hide it after they saw the money. And they wanted to hide it in the new church. And God didn't like that. They fall down dead. Because they thought they could hide it from God. The sin wasn't that they were hiding the money. The sin was that they were hiding it from God. They chose to want to hide it from God and still claim that everything was fine. 1 Chronicles 28:9 said, "And as for you, my son Solomon, know the God of your father and serve him with a whole heart and a willing mind. For the Lord searches all hearts and understands every intent of the thoughts. If you seek him, he will let you find him. But if you forsake him, he will reject you forever." He's the all-knowing God. He's the very one that created you. He knows how you're knit together. He knows the things that you have trouble with. And you're worried that he'll find out that maybe you're not all he thought he was, all he thought you were. Worried they'll be disappointed in us. I chose something kind of interesting here. This is another Psalm of David. But I was reading this week, and I thought this was interesting because he talks about how God is with him wherever he's been. He says, "I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. If I go up to heaven, you are there. If I go to the grave, you are there. If I ride the wings of the morning, and if I dwell by the farthest oceans, even there your hand will guide me, and your strength will support me. I could ask the darkness to hide me, and the light around me to become night. But even in darkness, I cannot hide from you. To you the night shines as bright as day. Darkness and light are the same to you." In other words, he's been with us everywhere. David's saying, you've been with me in my highs, you've been with me to my lows. You've been with me when I've been far away in other lands, and you've been with me when I've been right here in your land. How could he be disappointed? If he's willing to go with you all those different places, he could never be disappointed in you. We think we're not enough, emotionally, mentally, and physically. Samuel looked at the sons of Jesse, saw that they were strong men. He said, these are type of men that could lead Israel. He had recently had Saul. Saul, one of his big defining features, head and shoulders above every man in Israel. And he looked at the sons of Jesse, said, man, these are big, nice, strong, burly lads. Any one of these could be the new king of Israel. What does the Lord say to him? The Lord said to Samuel, he said, don't judge by his appearance or height, for I have rejected him. The Lord doesn't see things the way you see them. People judge by outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. He knew who you were when he came and found you. When he sought you out for salvation, there's verses that said that God sought us out for salvation. He knew who you were when he asked you to join. You weren't hiding anything from him. He knew who you were. And the problem is that sometimes we don't see what's in ourselves like God sees it. I've changed a lot over the years in what I do, and I credit it all to God because he saw things in me that I didn't know was there. I don't like speaking in front of people. I'll be honest with you. I never did. I had the voice for it, but I didn't like speaking in front of people. I worried too much about what people think. So it was hard for me to speak in front of people. But he knew something was in me. I don't think it was any accident. He gave me a big, loud voice. One day I'll probably not have a PA set, need to talk to people, just my normal voice. That's okay. I'm here. I'm ready. That's the great thing about God. He sees those things in there and he prepares it ahead of time. The paradox of mask in a church. A friend of mine, and I'll keep it pretty vague because they're probably listening to what I'm saying. He talks about a relative of his going to the doctor. The doctor asked him, "What's going on?" And Dad said, he said, "How are you feeling today?" And he goes, "I'm fine." And so of course the next question is, well, then why are you here? But the doctor, being a nice guy, he doesn't ask that. But and that's what I'm saying. But I took that a step further. It's like going to the doctor's office with a compound fracture in the arm. And in other words, with a compound fracture, if Mike was here, you can usually see a compound fracture. That's why I chose that one. It's something that you can physically see on the outside. So there's no fooling the doctor, but you've got a compound fracture in your arm, and the doctor says, "How are you feeling today?" "I'm fine." Except for the fact that your arm is pointing, there's a bone pointing up in your arm. The doctor can see it and you're not acknowledging the problem. It's the same with God. God sends out cursors to you to tell you, "Hey, maybe you need to talk to me about that. Let's talk about this." "Nah, I'm good. I've got things going today." And I've seen myself do it. I know that what the pastor is preaching about directly relates to me. I've sat there and said, I know exactly what he's talking about. But I'm going over to JC and Vanna's for lunch. I got to get out of here. I got to go. I'm fine. I'm going to leave you some thoughts for today. I'm not a person that is big on emotionalism and where I tell you a lot of stuff and then I try to get you to come to the altar thing. I'm going to leave you some thoughts, and you can go ahead and start the music. Just some things to think about, because I'm big on you taking what I'm talking about, and I want you to think about them as you go away, because this is all. It's kind of what I want you to process this. I'm a processor. Sometimes I need to hear something and then go out and process. And more of my spiritual work gets done on my ride home from Galesburg a lot of times than I hear, because I start processing. I'm alone with myself. It's just me and John and God, and I'm processing. So some thoughts for today. First thing I thought is, what if my guard was down when I'm with the other believers? These are your brothers and sisters. It says we've been adopted into a family, and if you can't be honest with your family, Mom for sure, she's seen the worst of me. My brother's seen the worst of me, but they still love me. Sometimes we need help. Let's be honest. What if I was honest with myself and the Lord? What would happen? What if I got rid of all my excuses and just was honest for once? I said, maybe I missed it there. Maybe I'm not who you called me to be in the past, but I want to be different. What if my problems, finances, relationships, work, etc., are my problems because I hid them behind a mask with God? Ooh, there's a big one. What if the problems that I'm experiencing in the world are all symptoms of the fact that they're things I've not given to God? I've not given them up and getting them off my plate. God said He would bear my burdens. But maybe sometimes I don't take Him up on that. I'm going to sit down for a second. We're going to listen to this, and we'll say bye to everybody on the live stream. And we're going to listen to this, and then we'll come together afterwards.